Hello, special fans. Welcome back to another episode of Accessible Athletics. Today on the show, I have a special guest joining me from Calgary Sports and Entertainment. For those of you who may not know, Calgary Sports and Entertainment own the Calgary Flames, the Calgary Wranglers, the Calgary Roughnecks, the Calgary Hitmen, and the Calgary Stampeders. They are also a very special friend and supporter of the Special Olympics program in Calgary. Karen Dommet joins me on the show today, and she is the executive director of the 2026 Grey Cup, which will be held in Calgary this year. Prior to this new role, Karen was with Special Olympics Canada. Karen, I'm very excited to have you on the show. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Damien.
So let me start by letting everyone know that you and I met last year when you were with Special Olympics Canada, helping organize the 2024 National Winter Games in Calgary. Can you tell us how you became involved with that event and Special Olympics Canada?
Yeah. Well, if I think back to when we probably very, very first met, probably almost 2 years ago now, when we think all the way back to when we interviewed for you to join the Special Olympics National Games team. So how did I get involved with Special? I guess my first part of my career was in post-secondary athletics, working at the University of Saskatchewan, and then moved to Alberta and worked in the ACAC. And then the 2019 Canada Winter Games were announced in Red Deer, and I took on the position there of Manager of Athlete Services, and came out of that post-secondary sport world and into the games world. And the Canada Games, for me, was a really pivotal moment. It really opened my eyes to how sport is this incredible tool for influencing and creating inclusion beyond sport and how it reflects the rest of our society. So in Red Deer, or all Canada Games really, it includes generic sport, Special Olympic sport, and para-sport all at once, all together in the same athletes' village, in the same dining hall, same transportation system, all of it. So my job was to do everything off the field of play for the athletes. So everything we did through our agreements, through training our volunteers, had to be done with the notion of this has to work for every ability and disability type of all the athletes and coaches and participants coming, which is really how we should be planning everything all the time. So for me, that really solidified the power of Special Olympics, the power of parasport, and how it really influences and changes perceptions of persons with disabilities. So then following those games, we moved to Cochrane, just outside of Calgary. And I started to work more in disability inclusive sports spaces. I was the director of the Calgary Adapted Hub, and still remain involved with Canada Games as mission staff. And I had just come home from being mission staff in Niagara for the 2022 Canada Summer Games, and was still reliving the magic of being at a games. And they announced that Calgary was going to host the Special Olympic Canada Winter Games. And I asked permission from my director, Dr. David Legg, if I could throw my hat in the ring to be the GM of the games, if he would still talk to me afterwards, if I left Calgary Adapted Hub to take this contract to do the games. And he was incredibly supportive. I was selected as the candidate to lead those games. And then that led to you and me meeting.
Well, that's a big involvement, and sounds like that's a big role, to do it all the way to different provinces, then move, and then do it in Calgary too. Mm-hmm. You mentioned generic sports. What exactly is generic sports? I know what Paralympics is and stuff, but what exactly is generic?
Yeah, so it's a term I use, and I think lots of folks in Special Olympics or in parasport will use, but you'll often hear people say, regular hockey or stand-up hockey or regular basketball. And to me, that insinuates that then Special Olympics basketball isn't regular basketball. It absolutely is. It's just, I think, the different word that we use to be more inclusive. So when we talk about what we would maybe say is regular sport, I will often call it generic sport, so that we're using language that is more inclusive and leveling out that it's generic, para, and special O. Nothing is regular or irregular or different. Just trying to use, I guess, more of an inclusive term.
So that you can make everybody feel like they're welcome for all sports. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it. So it seems to me that the 2024 National Games in Calgary were very well represented in the media, from the president of Special Olympics Canada being hosted on a global morning show to our mayor wrapping up the closing medal presentations. How do you think the games were received?
I don't think the president was the only one that was on the Global Morning Show, though, if I'm correct. Did you do a weather report one morning during the games on Global?
It wasn't, I was actually on Global News, but it wasn't a weather report. I was on there with the president of Special Olympics.
That's right.
On the morning show. It was just a quick interview to kind of find out how I liked special and what I do. And they interviewed the president and asked her what she liked and how she did it. So it was a quick, I was probably only in it for 20 minutes. I was in the waiting room longer than I was actually on air.
That's how it always goes.
But it was my first time being on the show on Global News. So I'm like, guess the cool taste if that's how they do it on TV. So
yeah. So I think to your credit, Damien, and the 4 other ambassadors that we had on the team, I think that was the success of the media. Was we had 5 really strong Special Olympic athlete ambassadors who really connected well with the media. You all presented yourselves incredibly well, and we owned the media in Calgary. Truthfully, we had incredible coverage, and I think it's also partly thanks to Tourism Calgary and a lot of the work they did in coordinating a lot of events that winter. That January, February, there was a ton of sporting events happening in our city. And Special Olympics National Games was the last event of this 7-week stretch of major event after major event. And through our support of Tourism Calgary, they were able to ensure that Special Olympics National Games were featured and mentioned in every single one of those events leading up. So you'll remember handing out medals at different events, as some of the other ambassadors did too, like at World Speed Skating Cup and things like that. So we were incredibly fortunate to have great collaboration and partnership across the city that really leaned in and created a big buzz around it.
And everybody that was involved, the volunteers and everyone, they all did a super job. I know the volunteers that were assigned to us, they always drove us around and were always there with us on our events to make sure that it ran good. So I thought that was pretty cool. How did you guys plan, when you had active ambassadors for the games, how did you figure out and plan, this is what we're going to have them do? And how long did it take you to plan out that, how long it's going to take for everybody to do things?
Yeah, a lot of strategy and planning went into that. Again, lots of support from Tourism Calgary in helping us navigate all the different events that were coming up and the opportunities. You'll remember working with Cheryl and Jordan and Chris Dornan. We had a great team of full-time staff behind it too that helped coordinate all those things and ensure that you guys had all your key messages and speaking documents and everything ready to go for every event. And we had our leads, Leonka and Darby, too. They helped influence and had a lot of input in what that strategy was too, and the type of events that you guys wanted to do. So, it was a huge team effort.
Yeah, I remember giving out medals too at the down the red carpet, going on the ice for figure skating, and I thought it was pretty cool how they got us involved with designing the medals. They asked us what designs we like better, and I thought that was cool because we kind of helped design those medals for the athletes, which is cool. Yeah, because the medals were so unique, and there's nothing like that in any of the sports, even in any other city that we've been to.
Totally, yeah. There was a lot of really big decisions that we were really intentional that needed to come from the athlete's voice and perspective, that these are things that are really important to the athlete experience. So we need to have Special Olympic athletes as part of the decision makers in how this will affect the athlete experience.
And that's cool that they're involved. So did you find it challenging to coordinate an event like the National Games?
I mean, anything that's a multi-sport games where you're running multiple national championships of multiple sports, with multiple contingents of flying people in from across the country, just that volume of people, the volume of volunteers. It will always be a challenge, but in a really fun way. It's also really addicting. I think that you make all these different plans of plan A, B, and C, and you spend so much time planning for things to also go wrong, that it's really magical when things go right. And then it's even really fun too when you get handed all the weird weather that we got handed, and we had to pivot and make a whole bunch of changes on the fly because we had crazy cold, and then we had tons of melting, and then we had a huge snowstorm, and then we had rain. And what you often end up with in those situations is a plan on the fly that was even better than you could have ever have imagined. And there's a lot of pride that comes out of that, of everyone coming together to create a solution that was better than what you ever dreamed of in the first place. And some of the coolest moments are then some of the athletes and coaches that come up afterwards and say, this was the best national games ever. And, we talk about the closing ceremony, or before the closing ceremonies when we were at City Hall and handed out medals there. That was never the plan. That was supposed to be outdoors at Olympic Plaza. And we had all these ice performances and all these bands and things really planned that were going to be huge. And what we ended up delivering felt much smaller scale than what we ever planned for, but it was indoors and it was comfortable. And we had all these performers inside, and everyone still talks about that now in the Special Olympics world, of that was one of the greatest events we've ever seen. And, so a lot of pride comes out of that, well, if the experience was great for everybody, then we did something right, even though it was never the plan.
Some of those performances, special opening ceremonies, I found were pretty cool and pretty unique. It's like anything I've never seen before in any of my other games that I've been to. Out of all the cities that you've been part of that have hosted, the national games, how do you think Calgary did in comparison with all those other cities?
Well, I'm biased, but I think Calgary did the best. I think Calgary is the best host city for these types of events. But that being said, I would love to see future hosts take what we did and build upon it. I don't want the Calgary 2024 games to be the best games that were ever hosted in history. I would love for the next and the future hosts to be able to have that title too, and just only see it grow and get better and better over time. But I think they have a tough job ahead of them, because I think we did a really good job, and I think Calgary is the best host city.
Yeah, I think it's like Calgary was designed for that kind of thing too, and which was good. What was your favorite part of the national games?
Yeah, this is such a great question. And it's, in some ways it is a really small moment. But when I reflect back on it, it's a big moment in my heart. I remember at the opening ceremony when the horse came through carrying the torch and standing in the front row with you and Allie and Siobhan and Darby and Leonka, and just the five of you athlete ambassadors beaming, and you guys had walked in with the banner already, and we were getting to have this moment where all the athletes and coaches were standing behind us, and it was really, really powerful to see that flame come through, that the cauldron was about to be lit. And I was bawling and look at all you guys, and you were all just smiling ear to ear of look, we did it, it's happening. And it was just this accumulation of this moment that has now finally come to life, and we did it together. And so much of that was brought to life through the leadership of the athlete ambassadors. And a whole week was about to happen of all more magical moments and chaos and fun. But for me, that stays etched in my brain as my most magical moment. Yeah,
that was a pretty cool moment. Watching athletes come in from the airport, greeting them, and then having all the athletes come up after saying, "Oh, your city's so nice. They did such a good job. It's such a big city." That's when you get people from other cities telling you that Calgary is a great city. That that I think that they seems like they did a pretty good job with that one there. So what are some of your favorite memories with the Special Olympics Canada?
Yeah, so following the games here in Calgary, I took on a contract role where I supported Special Olympics Canada with the national team program going to the World Winter Games in Turin, Italy. And yeah, that was, I've never been to Europe before. So that was a really cool experience, and really cool experience going to World Games with, I mean, there's so many seasoned and experienced athletes and coaches too that, the team collectively made fun of me for it being my first time ever going to Europe. And for so many of them, it was multiple trips and multiple World Games. But we had just such a great team. It was one of my first times being in that type of position. I've been on mission staff before, but being actually in a team leadership role with Team Canada, I've never had the opportunity to represent our country before. So yeah, that was a really cool experience, and to see the Special Olympics movement on a global stage. When you see, we almost take for granted of how robust Special Olympics is in our country, and how it's just, we're just used to it, right? And it's such a well-oiled machine here, and you get to see the perspective of other countries and just the impact that it has in other places of the world where intellectual and developmental disabilities maybe aren't as integrated and as accepted in society. And to get to see the impact that it has across the world was something really, really special.
Yeah, and I know we don't think much of it because we used to, but even during opening ceremonies, you see some teams or some cities like Ontario and Alberta and BC have like a big Special Olympics, and you see some other ones. It's like there's like 3 athletes and the rest coaches. It's like that's kind of like, I mean, it just seems like, well, why is it just such a small team? Like, there's way more people than that. It's just, it should be like everywhere should have like big teams like we do. Yeah,
and we're slowly seeing it grow, right? So that's the whole purpose, is that everyone deserves that access to opportunity. And the better job we do of hosting these events, the more it will grow and the more folks will have access to that opportunity.
And hopefully it does grow within the next few years here. So let's talk about your new role now. You're the executive director of the 2026 Grey Cup here in Calgary. What made you want to take on this new role?
Yeah, it was never on my bingo card, that's for sure. I always joke that I wasn't the obvious choice for this role. Not necessarily a directly straight line from Special Olympics to the CFL. But an event is an event. At the end of the day, that we're planning a logistical event that is very similar in the size and scope of a national games. But I grew up rural Saskatchewan, so there's a bit of a tinge of green on my heart always. But I do now work for the Calgary Stampeders, and I think I can say confidently at this point in the season I have learned to love them, and I'm okay and comfortable wearing Calgary Stampeder red now. But yeah, how I came into this role was through working on the Special Olympic National Games. We worked very closely with Tourism Calgary on everything. Our offices were within their office space, and built lots of great relationships there. And they're obviously the ones that are responsible for bidding on major events in our city and bringing major events and tourists to the city. So through those relationships, once they won the bid with the Calgary Stampeders for Grey Cup, they said, you should give this girl a call who just worked on Special Olympics with us, and she'd be great to lead this event. And so we had a couple of cups of coffee back and forth, and it takes a lot to come to the decision to leave Special Olympics Canada. It's a pretty sticky organization that is filled with a whole lot of good. So it definitely wasn't a decision that was taken lightly. But I say, and I'm maybe answering your next question here by saying this, but I think in leaving Special Olympics Canada, I told our CEO that I'm leaving to take this role with Grey Cup in an effort to solidify Calgary as the ultimate host city and continue to show what we can do in our city in Calgary. And we will elevate Grey Cup in a more inclusive and accessible way than it's ever been done before. And my hope is that if we do this really well, that we can position ourselves to one day bring a Special Olympic World Winter Games to the city of Calgary. So this is a strategic move of leaving Special Olympics to work on something bigger and better for our city, with the goal of ultimately coming back to Special Olympics in a different way.
And that'd be so cool if you can have that in a city, especially because the whole organization is just so involved in Special Olympics already. So it's kind of nice for you to be able to do that. Can you tell us a bit more about what you do now as the executive director of the 2026 Grey Cup?
Yeah, so I'm still kind of figuring it out every day. It still feels pretty new, but really I work most directly with the Calgary Stampeders with our president, Jay McNeil, and the CFL on delivering the game. So the 113th Grey Cup that will be hosted at McMahon Stadium in November of 2026. But the bigger piece is delivering the festival. So that will be a week-long festival down at Stampede Grounds. And then we're looking at other areas of the city to activate as well. But we've got a few key members of our team now put in place. So now it's not just me trying to figure it out every day. And we have got some much smarter and skillful people on our team now. So we have a director of operations, a director of marketing and communications that have joined the team. And we're just kind of building it one brick at a time right now and putting together what the vision will be, and starting to look at bringing some sponsors on board and things like that. But really planning a week-long festival where all Canadians and Calgarians can come together and join in this reunion of Canada.
That sounds exciting for that too, for sure. So how did this all come about for you?
Yeah, kind of through that connection through Tourism Calgary that I was mentioning before, that, I always say it wasn't on my bingo card. I didn't see it coming. I knew they were bidding on Grey Cup. I knew it was between Calgary and another city. And, similar to how I fell into the 2019 Canada Winter Games in Red Deer, my plan was to never work on it. I had always intended just to volunteer. And that was my plan with Grey Cup too. But once I had a chance to meet Jay, our president, and he shared his vision and his values, it really resonated. And I was a bit shocked and surprised that what he's trying to achieve with Calgary Stampeders and the impact that they are continually growing towards to have in the community wasn't that different than the values and vision of what I have done and seen through Special Olympics. So, it really felt like a good fit.
And that's good. Hopefully you end up liking it. So is your new role permanent? Or is it something that was just created specifically for the Grey Cup in Calgary?
Yeah, so we're taking a unique model here. The last time it was hosted in Calgary, it was all staff that worked on Grey Cup that were already within Calgary Sports and Entertainment, where this time we're a hired team that are specifically on a term to deliver and work on Grey Cup. So it's about just under a 2-year contract from start to finish for me. And then I'm a free agent again after this. So my dream would be that then we jump into a Special Olympics World Winter Games bid after this. But there's a lot of other people that got to make that decision first, though. Yeah,
I mean, that'd be cool, and we just gotta hope that it happens too. Are you planning on doing other things with Calgary Sports and Entertainment after the Grey Cup?
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see kind of what's written in the stars for me. It's been a great organization to work with so far, and I don't really ever like to have a plan, because as soon as I think I have a plan, then something else comes across my desk that surprises me. So we will see what unfolds in 2027 after we wrap Grey Cup.
Yeah, that'd be exciting too. So as a fan, is there anything we need to know about the upcoming Grey Cup as far as festivities go? And what can we look forward to?
Yeah, so the bid that was put together really looks to mimic doing a very similar type of feel to Calgary Stampede. So where Calgary Stampede has really transitioned into this big music festival of all types of genres all across the city, we're really leaning into that type of theme and feel. So there will be a concert series with lots of different acts and shows throughout the week of the festival that folks can look forward to. There will be the traditional team parties that everyone knows to expect and love. Big outdoor festival components, but we're really looking to curate experiences that honor the traditional fan that have traveled for years and years and years and go to every single Grey Cup, and they do it because they've created these long-lasting relationships and connections through Grey Cup. But taking that feeling of the traditional fan, and how are we opening it up so that more people feel welcome and included and see themselves in these experiences? So we want to see new Canadians coming down to the festival grounds and joining in this celebration of Canada. We want to see young families coming down. We want to see a really diverse population. And we want to also lead with inclusion and accessibility. So we'll be intentionally building in sensory rooms into the festival site. And how can we create a really friendly experience in both the game and the festival site for all abilities and disabilities?
That's going to help out. That's going to help the city a lot, make the city grow, population-wise and tourism-wise. So I think if you put that all together, that's going to be very good for the city. So as you know, my show is about helping Special Olympic athletes live a healthy lifestyle. I'm wondering if you may have some advice to give based on your own personal experiences with athletes during your time with Special Olympics Canada and the National Winter Games in Calgary.
Yeah, I think, what I always draw a lot of inspiration from in working with yourself and the other special athletes is how many things you all juggle in your schedule. And with sport and physical activity and your health being one of those very top priorities. And when we would talk about all the events that the ambassadors would do in the scheduling, that you all seem to juggle multiple jobs.
Yeah.
But then also keeping your sport and your fitness and your health right at the top there. So we try to really implement that as a staff too within our national games team, that, when we would carve out time to ensure that everyone was getting at least an hour movement in their day, and then we made that a priority. And then when things got really busy and we couldn't give that time, we would incorporate movement snacks into our meetings. And how are we giving ourselves a mental break and moving our bodies so that our meetings are productive and our work is productive and we're taking care of ourselves. And we're starting to see that now within our Grey Cup team too. Just yesterday we were in a really big team meeting and we took a break, and naturally the conversation went to, how can we start doing a team spin class, and how are we going to do this? And when we have the time on our side now in the early days, it's really important that we start to create that culture that we're taking care of our health and our minds and our bodies, because what we will do is really taxing and really stressful. And I think it kind of all draws back to that inspiration and things that I've learned from working with athletes and Special Olympic athletes in particular.
And that's also good because, it's good team building. You get to know your team better, and, you build relationships because, maybe you want to, people let's go meet once a week for coffee, and, you just hang out. It's just a fun way to get out and meet new people. There's a saying around the Special Olympics volunteer community that goes something like this: nobody really leaves Special Olympics once they become involved. Do you think that this might be true for you as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, as I said, it's a sticky organization, and the decision to leave Special Olympics Canada was a really, really difficult one. But yeah, as I said, I hope it's a leaving to come back one day. And yeah, I'm really fortunate too I live in Cochrane, just outside of the city, and there's a lot of Special Olympic athletes in Cochrane. There was, on our national team, there was, I think, 4 of us from our small town of Cochrane that represented Special Olympics Team Canada, which was really cool. So, as we're getting into back to school and things like that right now and family scheduling, I'm looking at our family calendar and my kids' activities and figuring out, where is there a day in the week there that I can carve out, and maybe I can get involved with Bow Valley Special Olympics and volunteer in some capacity, and maybe stay involved that way in the short term here.
Yeah, and that's a great thing with Special Olympics. Even though you leave, because Special Olympics is that kind of organization, they include everybody. So when you leave, I'm sure it'll be very easy for you to get back in, because I'm sure they always take you because they always want to include everybody. So, you leave, but you don't really leave because you can always come back, I'm pretty sure. So.
Yeah, that's right. There's far and few between places that are more welcoming of a space than Special Olympics, that's for sure.
Yeah, and they do a good job of it, so. Well, Karen, this has been a great interview. I hope that the Grey Cup in Calgary is a huge success, and I wish you all the best in your new career. Thank you so much for coming on my show today and for taking the time to do this interview.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Well, there you have it, special fans. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Accessible Athletics. I'm your host, Damian Kyoto, reminding you to continue making a healthy lifestyle your priority, and stay tuned for the next episode of Accessible Athletics.